Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio, it's time for the GNFCC 400 Insider. Connect, build, and grow with the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce.
Hello and welcome to the GNFCC 400 Insider, the monthly radio show and podcast presented by the Greater North Fulton Chamber. I'm Kali Boatright, President and CEO of the Chamber, and today we're excited to hear from Keith Parker, President and Chief Executive Officer of Goodwill of North Georgia. Goodwill is one of the largest retail and nonprofit organizations in the Southeast, spanning a 45-county territory, operating 67 stores, 52 attended donation centers, and 13 career centers. Prior to transitioning into his leadership role at Goodwill, Keith served as CEO of the largest transit system in many cities, including San Antonio, Charlotte, and most recently here in Atlanta. Parker's 5-year leadership of MARTA won widespread acclaim. He helped transform one of the most beleaguered transit agencies in the nation with huge budget deficits and major public image issues to a fiscally sound, award-winning organization. Parker's leadership established MARTA as an important player in Georgia's economic development efforts, helping to attract and retain major employers. Keith, we're glad to have you here with us today.
Thrilled to be with you.
Wonderful. Well, you have a very long history of service to nonprofits, charitable, corporate boards. I know you're active in many organizations. You sit on the board of our Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Georgia Chamber, Rotary Club, Learn for Life, the CVB, and I'm sure countless others. So I'd love for you just to start off with a little bit about yourself and your background, and then what's inspired you to end with Goodwill here in North Georgia.
Well, don't know if it's going to be the end.
That's a good point. That's a good point. End up here now.
A great place to be. I've had a really neat history, and I like to tell it with the little factoid. When people ask you, what's a little known fact about yourself? I tell them, well, my oldest daughter's 22 years old and was born in Washington State. My younger daughter was born 18 years ago in Charlotte. My son was born 9 years ago in San Antonio. So we moved to Atlanta soon after he was born. And my wife made a point to say, hey, look, if you're having another one, it will be with your next wife.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
So I end up here 9 years ago, a little more than 9 years ago, running MARTA. But after having some success there, decided it was time to do something new, something a little different. And from the time I arrived here in Atlanta, the thing that stood out to me as the most pernicious problem facing Metro Atlanta is that this region is, by accounts that are being done by the National Labor Relations Board and other groups, it's the worst place in the country in which to be born if you're born poor, if you want to move into middle class and above. That if you're born in certain zip codes, certain neighborhoods, there is a 96% chance that you will be born into poverty, live your life in poverty, and die in poverty, and die literally a decade or so more than people who are living in more affluent areas. So you live a tough life and you live a shorter life if you happen to be born poor in these areas. And so Goodwill of North Georgia, our mission for 97 years has been to put people to work. And as we know, there's nothing more impactful to moving people out of poverty than to move people from unemployment into employment. And we actually have taken it and raised it a notch with what we call the ABC approach of a job, a better job, and a career. So in the time that I've been CEO, which is now close to 5 years, it'll be 5 years in October, we've helped almost 100,000 people find jobs. And we've helped over 36,000 families move out of poverty. So we think we're having a meaningful impact. And that's why the work of Goodwill is so fulfilling, so refreshing. It's because we know we're helping, in many cases, people with major barriers to employment and to success in life, to find those successes and find a just better path forward.
That's amazing. The number is 100,000 people to find a job and 36,000 to come out of that poverty and move into another bracket, if you will. That's incredible. I mean, by any measure, 36%, right, is incredible. So kudos to you and, of course, to your team at Goodwill of North Georgia. And I'm going to go back prior to that 5 years. You had so much success in leading transit in the several cities that we just discussed. And I have to ask, so are your kids named for those cities? Because that would be even more interesting.
No, they're not.
Okay, good. That's probably best.
Very traditional names.
Okay.
And the last one is Keith too.
Oh, perfect. Well, I didn't know if, it was going to be Antonio for San Antonio. So I had to ask. Okay, so you were in the cities, leading obviously transit in those cities, and then came here specifically to work with MARTA here in Atlanta. Including those cities, you've received so many awards, Nation's Outstanding Public Transportation Manager by the American Public Transportation Association, Metro Magazine's 20 Most Influential People of the Decade. In 2016, you were also appointed by President Barack Obama to serve on the National Infrastructure Advisory Council. I mean, you had, by all rights, just an incredible career going in transit, and you've already expressed your drive and your mission to certainly to come to Goodwill. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your transition from transit, where you were doing actually, what makes sense, similar work, getting folks to jobs, right? So part of that, but how are they similar and how are they different?
Well, they're very similar from the standpoint that is it about service, that people join the public transit realm because there's something in them where they want to help their fellow man, help families, help communities grow. And transit is often the tool that gets people to work, to education, to medical facilities, all the different things that make life more fulfilling. Mm-hmm. And on the Goodwill side, of course, nothing is really possible if at least one person in a household is not bringing in a decent income. And it's not just money, but we all know that jobs bring with them a certain level of dignity, mm-hmm. a certain level of status. And if a person, or in particularly an entire family, if someone in that house is not proud of the work they're doing and the contribution they're making, it's going to make it tough for the other people in the house to find success. One of the greatest barriers I know of is the barrier of low expectation. And so if you have a generation of people who no one in the home has found satisfying, dignified work, then it's going to be tough for the kids who are growing up in that environment. So again, we think of it as the key to all success is starting out with a great job.
Well, and that makes sense. You talk about jobs bringing status, and I think that piece is pride, right? So pride in what you do, pride in your job, and certainly the children see that and want to emulate it if it's something that is being shown to bring pride to their parents. And so I think that that opportunity that you bring, which for me is what that is, it's hope and opportunity that you give a very specific system and process to be able to access.
Absolutely. And a big part of what we do is try to make sure that people are extremely comfortable. So at Goodwill of North Georgia, we really pride ourselves in that when a person comes through our doors, and it's not easy quite often for folks. In fact, there's a lady who tells a story where she drove around the block 3 times and then had to take 3 deep breaths before she finally walked into one of our major facilities because she felt embarrassed. She felt embarrassed that she needed to come to a Goodwill to help her find a job. But she said the second she walked in, she looked around and saw all these vibrant colors and a facility that's spotless and looks, like any office that you would be proud to work out of. And then a person who greeting her with great levels of respect and dignity and just basically made her feel like she was home and that she felt great about that experience from that first second all the way to the point where we helped her find a job. And she is one of those people who now will go out and just brag about Goodwill nonstop because we meet people where they are. We don't tell people you need to meet our expectations in any way, shape, or form. So you can be a person who just retired from the military and just hasn't had a chance to interview in a long time, but now wanted to get some interview skills, maybe get a little help with your resume, that sort of thing. Or you could be a person who's drug addicted, been on the streets for years, and now ready to turn your life around.
Right.
And we will help you no matter where you are. That's where we'll meet you. But the only thing you have to bring to the table, and this is the one thing we don't compromise on, you have to want to work.
Yep.
We're not trying to get that motivation, but you have to want to work. You do that, we will help you with everything else.
I think that's a good trade. You know, you bring drive and we bring opportunity. But it sounds like you've also built a culture of respect that allows people to come in and feel like they are respected. And again, in return, would offer that same respect to the organization and giving back to it once they've gone through the process. So that's an amazing thing. And it's no wonder because of that Goodwill of North Georgia has been named the #1 Goodwill in the nation for helping job seekers secure employment. That story is like a perfect example of why you all have been have received that kudos. So congratulations. I know our chamber partners with Goodwill on a number of workforce development initiatives in the region, but maybe could you tell our listeners a little bit about some of those specific programs and how you put those people to work?
Yes. So we've been very fortunate, and we try to really bring forward opportunities in areas that need them. So we actually operate out of 45 different counties here in North Georgia, and every county is a little bit different. So we don't prescribe what job programs we have. We don't walk in the door saying, this is what we're going to produce. Mm-hmm. Instead, we learn the community, learn what the business needs are of that community, learn what the folks who live there want to train in. And so we've developed programs to fit the needs of those communities. So everything from, again, the very light touch, as we call it, where someone may have a job interview tomorrow and they're a little bit nervous. And so they come through one of our doors and say, hey, look, can you give me a few pointers on what not to say and what to wear and what things that I should just make sure I emphasize when I'm trying to sell myself to this employer, to people who literally need all the wraparound services that we can possibly offer folks who may join a program that takes 10, 12, 14 weeks. And we can help you find an entry-level job that may be paying $8-9 an hour. Or we can, as we tell you, if you've got the drive and commitment, we can get you a $100,000 a year job. So if, for example, in our cybersecurity side of things, if you are willing to come in, put in the time and the discipline, within about 12, 16 weeks, we can have you a cybersecurity job paying you over $110,000 a year, free of charge to you. We desperately need more and more people into transportation. Yeah. And in the transportation realm, again, if you don't even have to have a CDL, we will work with you to get the CDL, get you all the training you need and so forth. And within a reasonable amount of time, just a few months, we can have you a job again paying over $100,000 a year. And if you have other things that you want to do in hospitality and even the entertainment industry now and a whole host of others, we are offering opportunities for you to reach, again, not just a job, but a better job and onto a career. And the sky is really the limit.
Keith, your daughters are college age, so we probably shouldn't let that get out because I'm thinking you have a lot of colleges who would be like, wait, hold on. I know a lot of students who graduated from, college programs, I would say 4 years, but often longer than that aren't getting $100,000 for something that you can turn around in a couple of 3 months. And I think it goes back to drive, of course, and to the high level of expectation that you have for your team members who are able to train in that amount of time. So again, kudos to you and to Goodwill on the good work there. Goodwill also recently received a great grant, $700,000 grant from Invest Atlanta. Invest Atlanta, of course, is the economic development agency for the city of Atlanta. So this was to help provide free job training and certification at the new Career Center in the city of Atlanta. Maybe tell us a little bit about that training facility and what you've seen there.
Yes, so soon after I took the great role as president, CEO of Goodwill, I started touring the area and spent a lot of time with different neighborhood associations and political leaders and so forth. And it became very obvious that we had a major hole in our network of stores and career center. And South Atlanta is where that major hole was, that we did not have a career center at all anywhere in the city of Atlanta, and actually have not as many stores as one would imagine. We're in lots of areas like Johns Creek. We're in
you're all
Rome,
over, yeah.
we're in Cornelia. We're in Hartswell. I mean, we're just all around, but not a big presence within the city itself. So I was challenged that needed to change. And through a great partnership with the folks at Invest Atlanta and some great contributors from a number of different charitable foundations and so forth, we're able to build a brand new career center and store off of Metropolitan Parkway that opened just a few months ago. And already we're finding great success. In fact, even before we opened doors, we had some of our career counselors taking phone calls from people from the neighborhoods, and were able to find over 100 people different jobs that we think would be great fits for them. Now that facility we anticipate will help about 8,000 people per year. We'll be going through that facility, utilizing our computers, utilizing the job training coaches and a whole host of other things, and the workforce development training itself. So we have a number of different programs out of that facility, and again, it's proving to be quite successful. We intentionally moved to that area. Wanted to be on the south side because in the metropolitan area, even before COVID, the unemployment rate was over 40%.
Wow.
And some of the highest poverty, some of the highest challenges that people find themselves in. And we know, again, the fastest way you can begin to turn around a community is through education, and couple education with somebody in that house having a good, sustainable job.
It's very surprising to me that there was not access to that in South Atlanta. It's somewhat counterintuitive. So I'm glad to hear that that's up and running and being so successful. If you've got 8,000 folks coming through there, I mean, that's incredible.
Yes. And so one thing we do pride ourselves on is developing partnerships. And so there are some great community organizations throughout the city of Atlanta, throughout South Atlanta, and so forth. And what we will try to do is add the complement of things that we do well with some already established wonderful groups. And together, I think we'll be able to find some successes and look forward to growing together, different groups working with one another and moving forward.
Well, you use the word success, and I am a big proponent of success stories. Who doesn't love a great success story? So I would love it if you would tell us about maybe a client that you have a personal story about who came in and left with tools and training and has been a rock star because of Goodwill.
Yes. Well, we've had, as I mentioned, we've hit about 100,000 people who we've helped find jobs over the last 5 years and in just the next few months. And there's 100,000 stories that go along with each one of those folks. A few do stand out. I'll share a couple. There's a young lady who went through our technology career program, and this is a program we developed in collaboration with now Mayor Andre Dickens of the city of Atlanta. He and I were just bouncing around some ideas, and literally 30 minutes later, we came up with the concept of this technology career program. And 6 months later, we had our first graduate. And the person who literally appeared on several of his commercials as a great success story was a young lady who was making $9.50 an hour at a job, and went through our program, and just literally a few months later was in the $60,000 range. And we just have literally hundreds and hundreds of other folks who've gone through that same program who are doing fantastically well themselves. And then another gentleman who had an even closer story to us at Goodwill was a fellow who had found himself being arrested over and over again, drug addicted, by his own definition, own description, very abusive to women. And he finally reached this point where he was coming out of jail yet again, and the judge asked him, well, where would you like to go? What can we do to stop this? And he had heard about Goodwill, so he comes to a Goodwill facility, and we put him to work. And he actually comes to work for us, and he ended up having outstanding attendance, being one of the folks who we could just rely on at extraordinary levels. And we're just thrilled to say that he just retired from us after 18 extraordinary years of service as one of our most important and popular team members, married now, completely self-sufficient in a million different ways, and with all great partnerships. He gave us as much as we gave him. So he's one of those great stories that will resonate, I think, for years and years to come.
I think the great thing about that story, we're on a radio show, so nobody else can see you, but I see you smile when you're telling that story, and I know that it's meaningful not just to be able to relay it, but also to your heart. So I think that putting a person in the place of the stories is so important. 100,000 is a huge number, and it's very exciting, but it's really those stories of those individuals that sort of speak to us as humans, and clearly to you, because I saw your response to that.
Well, I always tell our team, people forget statistics, but they remember how you make them feel in great stories.
That's exactly right. And we appreciate Goodwill and the partnership that we have with you. Certainly, we've partnered on a job fair that's coming up August 3rd at the Roswell Doubletree. Are there other ways that you can maybe share with me that Goodwill is working specifically up here, specifically in North Fulton, and how the region can best support you? Any events where your stores are located? I can give a couple of locations because I donate and I shop there. I have found some of the greatest stuff for my college-age kids and for me there. I think it's a great place to go and look around, and it's a great cause.
So we are thrilled about the presence we have in North Fulton. We have several stores. I think a couple in Roswell. We're in Johns Creek. We're in Northridge. With just a number of different spots, and do really well up here. Really, really well. The thing that I would encourage everyone to continue to do is donate. Continue to donate. That lightly used suit. You've heard me tell this story before. That according to a gentleman's magazine, that if you have not worn a suit in more than a year, there's less than a 2% chance you'll ever wear it again. And so that suit that's gathering dust for you is someone's dream interview, a uniform, or that coffee table that looks unsightly to you and doesn't fit well with in your house anymore, is a great starter piece for a kid or a young family who getting their first apartment and so forth. So one person's thing to discard is another person's treasure, and that's what we really like to preach. And so, the more people can help by donating, please do that. The programs we know that resonate again well up here is in our hospitality side of things, where we prepare people to work in the hospitality industry. We also have some really wonderful programs in healthcare, and are partnering with a few of the different hospitals in providing trained people who are ready to go, because as we know, there's enormous shortages in these various areas, but there's also a ton of construction going on in this area. And we have a women in construction program. We are providing lots of women who may have been working jobs. Again, every job's a job that you should be proud of and do your very best at. But if you want to move from a certain, pay to another, that may mean or necessitate a career change or a change into something a little bit different. So we worked with a number of women, particularly, who may have been in a position that they were making $9 an hour or so, and then put them in our Women in Construction program or the welding program, and a whole host of other things that are non-traditional. And suddenly they're making $20 an hour, $30 an hour and above. And that's game changing. That's life changing for your family, to more than double your income in a very short period of time at no cost to you. In fact, we pay people while they're in our programs, because we know that if we tell the typical person who's struggling already month to month with their responsibilities, that come join this program with us, and 3 months later you get your first paycheck, we know that's not a prescription for success. So instead, what we do is pay them a stipend. It's not a huge stipend at this point, but pay them money they can get by on. We actually have a partnership with Uber and Lyft to provide their transportation for free while they're training with us, and even the first few weeks of their new job until they get their first paycheck. So we try to come up with all the things that get in the way from people succeeding, so that they can find major success. So you name it, we've probably got a program in it to help people, again, reach that a job, better job, and on to the career of their dreams.
You get rid of all the barriers so that they can move forward and be successful in whatever way they choose. It also dawns on me that when you, of course, move from a job where you're making $9 to $10 an hour to a job where you're making $60,000, that there are numerous benefits that go along with that. From the perspective of health insurance and paid holiday pay and other things, in many cases that obviously is beneficial to a family with children in school and trying to be able to balance all those things. So I think that it's a culture shift, right? Ending for a lot of families what could have been a systemic poverty issue over time.
Absolutely, and we have a number of different helpful areas in helping people deal with financial literacy.
Of course. Yeah, that's all new too.
Absolutely, because quite often a person, unfortunately, may go from a very low income to a better income, but find themselves in more debt. Right. And even tougher financial situations than they were making less money. So we try to, again, help in any way we can with people finding not just a job, but also all the different things that come with making more money. So we try to provide financial literacy and financial education components and supplements of where they can go and get that information to make sure that they're using their dollars as best they can.
I'm incredibly impressed by you and certainly by Goodwill and the programs that they have going. And I would encourage everyone to donate, to contribute. I'm sure that you will also take donations should someone feel so led to do so. And to get involved in the great things that Goodwill is doing, as you said, in 45 different counties all across the state. So an opportunity to really have that local control of knowing that you're keeping your assistance local for people in your own community. So I think that's just tremendous. I'm gonna shift gears on you a little bit. One, personally, I saw a video recently that you had done a little snippet on networking versus relationship building. And many of us in the business world, of course, go to networking events and build relationships with folks as part of that process. Two different things or the same thing, Keith Parker? Tell me what you think.
I think they're quite different. Networking to me has always implied transactional type relationships. And in transactional relationships, there's often a winner and a loser. Or somebody who says, I beat you, or I took advantage of that person, or got the edge, versus true relationships and true partnerships. I think both sides come out winning. And that's what we try to do at Goodwill. I really stress that we have over 5,000 different partnerships that we have in place right now, from multinational corporations like the Home Depots of the world down to little mom and pop shops. And all those partnerships, I don't want my team to ever come back to me and say, "Oh, we took that group to school. we really won out." Instead, I want our team to come back saying, "We provided something great. They got something out of it. We got just as much." Both sides feel really good about the relationship, and I feel that way about business relationships as well as personal, as well as the other pieces that are sort of in the middle. That if both sides come into it with the mentality of, I'm going to give my fair piece of this, and in fact, I'm willing to give even more than my fair piece of it, because I want that partner of mine, that collaborator of mine, to do even better than me on this. That's the approach we really try to take, because if you're going into a relationship just thinking, I'm going to win, or I want 50-50, maybe it's not the best place to go to spend your time. So we really try to espouse that. It's worked wonders for me throughout my career, because I've been able to always call back on anybody I've had a relationship with, and they typically pick up the phone, and because they know that I'm there to help them just as much as they can help me, and both sides benefit.
Well, and I think that radical kindness like that is also contagious. So when we do things that are above what the other person expects from us, that they tend to return that favor and pay it forward. And that's what makes the world better. So if we can wax poetic for a moment, wouldn't it be a nice place if everyone felt that way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's not an SEC game. I understand that's a whole different world, so we won't go there. The other question I wanted to ask you, just personally, I know you and I have had the chance to chat about Virginia before. Your commitment to your alma mater, Virginia Commonwealth University, has been notable. You received the VCU Alumni Star Award in 2015. You had successive appointments to the VCU Board of Visitors from 2 governors, not just one. And then more recently, you were unanimously elected rector and chairman of the VCU Board of Visitors. That's pretty impressive for a guy who lives in Georgia. I got to tell you, I think that's amazing. I would love to know, and I love Virginia. I had a job where I got to work there, and I think the area is beautiful, Richmond in particular, which you and I have discussed before. But it's a personal question. How do you balance your career success, which is notable, with your commitment to your family, which we've talked about a little bit today as well, and your volunteer commitments, not just all of the ones that are here in Georgia, but also your commitment to your alma mater, which lives in a different state than you do?
Well, being organized, and also Zoom has turned out to be wonderful in being able to be in Virginia while I'm sitting here in Georgia.
That's right.
Having a presence in Virginia, but being right here.
True.
When I take on a new assignment, I literally sit down with my assistant and we start plotting through what this is going to look like, and making sure that there's still adequate time for me to do all the things that I'm doing well. Thankfully, my rectorship at VCU and chairman of the boardship actually ended a little while ago, so that actually freed up quite a bit of time for me.
I'll bet you feel like a free man now, right?
Still involved, but no longer at that chair level.
Right.
And as you get more experienced in this type of thing, you learn to do it more time efficiently,
sure,
and in a more concise manner. So I think what I'll be doing in the future is narrowing that down a little bit. There's a neat little book called Essentialism that teaches you how to focus in on those handful of types of things that you can bring the greatest benefit and the greatest value to, that also bring the greatest benefit and value to yourself. And so I'll be honing in on a bit more of that. But I have many late nights and lots of weekends, but everything I do, I really, really enjoy. And nothing, though, beats. Like right now, my son is heavily involved in sports. And now he's 9 years old and just started tackle football, as he calls it.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. So we're in practice every night, 6 to 8. So
that's terrifying.
Lots of fun.
That's wonderful. And I know you're a tremendous father. I personally am in awe of all of the things that you've been able to accomplish, and certainly appreciate the relationship that we've been able to develop, and look forward to working with you well into the future. So listeners who are so inspired like I am, how would they find you? What website, social media, where do you hang out where they might be able to access?
Well, I always have to cheat on this and look over to my great support system in the name of Tia Banks. Tia helps us on our media relations side of things. But you can reach us at goodwillng.org. NG stands for North Georgia, so goodwillng.org.
Okay.
careerconnector.org. So if you're actually looking for a job or job training, or want to just hear about our different programs, or like the career fair you just mentioned that we're having, you can go to our careerconnector.org site and find out all sorts of information about, again, about resume building, job training, and the sorts of things that we have coming up in the near future. My Instagram page is at Goodwill_NG.
Yep.
We are also on Twitter. We are also on LinkedIn. So we're all over the place.
Great. And we'll post that for everybody as well. I just want to really sincerely thank you, Keith. You've been a great guest. I always like hearing about what you and what Goodwill are doing, but the things that you bring that are exciting with your passion for what you do, no matter what it is that you're doing, is truly inspiring. So I really do appreciate that very much.
Well, I enjoy our friendship as well, and look forward to many, many years of fruitful just interaction. And this is a wonderful part of our region, and I think one that has a great future.
It must be if we've got so many people focused on the success of North Fulton. So I appreciate that very much. I want to thank my guest, Keith Parker, for joining me today. And I also want to thank our listeners for joining us on the GNFCC 400 Insider presented by the Greater North Fulton Chamber. To listen to this show again or to hear any of our previous episodes, visit GNFCC400insider.com on any of your favorite podcast platforms. And to find out more about our workforce development initiatives or learn more about the Greater North Fulton Chamber events and programs, you can always visit GNFCC.com. Until next time, I'm Kali Boatright, and this has been the GNFCC 400 Insider on Business Radio X.